all intellectual virtues exist in a constellation of understandings. So what we want to do is to integrate these understandings into our mind as connected ideas. In this session, we're focused on another intellectual virtue, intellectual humility. And so, Gerald, would you like to begin?
Yeah. Thank you, Linda. It gives me a lot of pleasure to talk about intellectual humility and spend some time on it. As I mentioned to you before, it's a little odd to say it, but it's my favorite intellectual virtue. By that, I mean, it's the one that I most indulge in long before I ever discovered a name like intellectual humility for it. It's just, so two things that I particularly like, there are several aspects of intellectual humility, but here are two of the main ones. I like confronting the stuff that I don't know. It just gives me great pleasure to contemplate the stuff I don't know. And for me, it's not always about finding the knowledge. It's often not about answering the question. It's often just asking the question and exploring it and coming to the recognition. To me, it's often a rich feeling, recognition of how much I don't know about so much, about stuff that I do know a lot of, how much I don't know about teaching, how much I don't know about learning. I mean, how does learning work? How do you distinguish learning from just giving back answers? Even when the students put the answers in their own words, it's evanescent. It goes away in no time at all. Their memory of it goes away, and it's not clear that their understanding of it was ever there just because they recapitulate the word. So what is learning? I like confronting how much I don't know about learning. And then sometimes, every so often, I will focus on a part and I'll start getting some insights into it. And that's just wonderful and uplifting. But intellectual humility, this first part, is just contemplating what I don't know. And the other part of intellectual humility that resonates with me a lot is finding out how much I thought I knew and didn't. I once gave a keynote at the International Conference on Critical Thinking about the joys of finding out that you're mistaken. And to my surprise, a lot of people did not resonate with that. Some people dislike it very much when they're mistaken. And I'm imagining that must be true for me in some areas. But by and large, it's just a delight to take things that I thought I knew inside and out, or had the impression that I knew inside and out, and finding out that I was mistaken or that there's a whole different explanation. I just remember about just loving majestically tall trees and the great feeling of uplift, almost spirituality it gave me. And it can still give me that. But then I just realized that it was, realized in my reading and contemplation and teaching, I realized that it's the product of trees competing with one another to the death. As the tree gets to be tall by getting more sunlight, and then the next generation of trees has to get a little taller to get more sunlight, and the next one is called an evolutionary arms race. So that this great beauty of these immensely tall trees is the product of infighting, and there are a lot of those. So finding that out for me was just uplifting, not because of any cynicism in it, but just because of taking it for granted that I knew what was going on, and then finding out that it isn't.
That's interesting. Well, I had taken many notes of my.
I said a lot of stuff, right?
My page is already full. So let's then, if we could go back to the core, let's say, of intellectual humility. And of course, you've already focused on the core, so I just want to build on that and comment. Good. So you said intellectual humility is your favorite, and I believe you said your favorite,
Yes.
and that you were to some degree, or maybe a large degree, embodying intellectual humility before you had a
Mm-hmm.
term for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that is essential to understanding intellectual humility, because it is a way of life, and all of the virtues are a way of life. But
Mm-hmm.
it's a way of life in which you have the sneaking suspicion that you may be wrong
Yeah.
on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
And you start to think that maybe there are better ways of thinking, but maybe you're not sure what they are, but you know
Mm-hmm.
that you need some knowledge that you don't have. And you see, intellectual humility is, I think, unique in that if you don't have, let's say, to the degree that you do not embody intellectual humility, I don't see how you can move through the stages of critical thinking development, because you're already perfect. You
Mm-hmm.
already know it all. So
Mm-hmm.
the person who is embodying intellectual humility to the highest degree
Mm-hmm.
is a person who at any moment can clearly distinguish,
Mm-hmm.
let's say, people who at any moment can clearly distinguish between what they know for sure and what they could be wrong about,
Right.
or that they don't know at all.
Right.
That's the ideal. That,
Mm-hmm.
that at every moment you're aware of what you know right now in context relevant to the situation, and
Mm-hmm.
do not know. And what the mind naturally thinks in terms of, let's say, egocentricity, that it already has everything it needs. It already knows everything it needs to know. That's the rubber band starting place. Yes, so we go back to that.
Mm-hmm.
So though you are I mean, you're an exception, Gerald, because you were doing this. It's always been part of who you are.
Yeah.
And there are people who have this same orientation. It's easier for them, let's just say, and it's all right to say that. It doesn't matter that we all have different starting places. For some, it may be easier than others. The point is, we've all got to eventually embody it, and the sooner the better.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that you tend to be a person who just always thinks you know it all, then you're really in trouble,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you're going to go through life as an intellectually arrogant person.
Right.
And it's going to be difficult for you to learn anything because you already know it all.
Right. And let me say that there are three rough and ready categories. There's intellectual humility and there's intellectual arrogance, but there's also this area in the middle, which is neither one nor the other. And that is, I'm not interested in knowing more. I don't know all the answers, but it's just not something that appeals to me. I think that's true of all the virtues. You're not either at one end or the other. But that also inhibits your ability to learn and to prosper in all kinds of ways.
Mhm.